Thank you so much for coming tonight to CVPA Campus Gallery at UMass Dartmouth. Welcome. My name is Vera Levitt. I'm a gallery director here at College of Visual and Performing Arts, and I'm thrilled to have this amazing opportunity to welcome the creators of the exhibition, Norman Ives, Constructions and Reconstructions. We have, this is such an amazing gathering, post-pandemic exhibition, this really nice project, and we feel very privileged to be able to host this show. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for bringing this exhibition, and I'll have our Dean, Lawrence Jenkins, welcome you here too. Just a few housekeeping notes. Please keep your mask on your face and nose, on your nose and mouth. We have refreshments outside of the building, so it's safe and comfortable for everyone. We have some chairs there, so please stay with us. We are going to be here past 7 p.m., so we'll be happy to see you down. We have a projection outside of this room, so you can see the show while you're enjoying your refreshments that is individually packed, and enjoy the evening. And Lawrence, take it away.
Thank you, Vera, and welcome everyone to not only a wonderful exhibition and a wonderful event, but really the first large event that we've had in this building in many months. And so it's especially delightful to have you here for such a really beautiful exhibition, important and beautiful. So we are honored to have this show here. I want to thank Jan Fairbairn, who's going to speak to us in a moment, for the hard work she did in bringing the show here. And of course, Vera Levitt, our gallery director, who works tirelessly to bring us extraordinary art, both on the main campus and downtown. So I know I'm not the reason you're here, so I'm going to say welcome. Glad to have you here. Enjoy the exhibition. Please join us outside for refreshments, and thank you for being here.
So, oops, I'm a little taller maybe. So, hi, I'm Jan Fairbairn. I teach typography and graphic design here at the College of Visual and Performing Arts. And it's delightful to see so many Yale people and my students and former students and colleagues. Really a pleasure to welcome you all to this reception for the Norman Ives and to introduce you to John Hill, who curated this exhibition. Though I'd like to just begin by thanking those that helped make this possible. So first, my deep gratitude to Vera Levitt for supporting my Ives proposal to the gallery committee, becoming a solid ally, and sort of the endless details that takes to bring this exhibition and this reception to the college. In addition, I'd like to thank Lawrence Jenkins, over here, who is the dean of the college, as you just heard. He was instrumental in helping the reception, the refreshments for the reception tonight. So that we're quite happy with. And then just a little quick blah blah. I initiated a little student project with graphic design, illustration, and sculpture, which is just outside this door. We did it really quick. We did it like 2.5 weeks. They came in, they were inspired by the work, and we decided what we're going to do. And there's a beautiful, I think, wall relief made out of wood. And again, the turnaround was like 2 weeks. So please take a look at that outside the door as well. So John T. Hill is a graphic designer, author, and photographer. He was Ives' student and teaching colleague at Yale University School of Art, where he taught graphic design and photography. They were lifelong friends, and I'm sure that John will share many of his stories and insights about Norman Ives, who had multiple careers: fine artist, graphic designer, publisher, and teacher. John co-founded Yale's first Department of Photography and was its first director of graduate studies. It was a time when photography was really just emerging as a serious art. John's career as a corporate photographer spanned 30 years. His focus is now on book and exhibition design and writing. 2 of his book designs were selected by the AIGA 50 Books, 50 Covers of the Year Award. For 19 years, he was executor of the Walker Evans estate and produced a number of books related to the iconic photographer. The list includes Walker Evans, The Hungry Eye, Walker Evans Lyric Documentary, and Walker Evans Depth of Field. John has also designed books presenting the wide-ranging talent of Alexander Calder, W. Gene Smith, and Edward Weston. In 2007, the AIGA hosted Norman Ives Constructions and Reconstructions, designed by Hill. It was the first to note the rarity of Ives' recognition as a fine artist and graphic designer. In 2015, Joseph Albers Museum in Bottrop, Germany, hosted a major exhibition entitled Walker Evans Depth of Field. It was co-curated by Hill and Heinz Leisbruck, director of the museum. It was the most comprehensive Evans exhibition to date. In 2016, a larger version traveled to the Vancouver Art Gallery. And Roger Remington, who is the director of the Vignali Design Center at the Rochester Institute of Technology, hosted the exhibition Norman Ives Constructions and Reconstructions. Remington and Hill mounted this first extensive showing of Ives' multifaceted career. And then last year, John produced Norman Ives Constructions and Reconstructions, an in-depth chronicle of Ives' life and work. And we have copies here tonight if anyone would like to go home with one, and John has agreed to sign them. Thank you all for coming, and John will be happy to take your questions and comments at the conclusion of his talk. So please help me welcome John Hill.
First of all, I'd like to thank Jan for accepting my offer of this exhibition, which started the whole thing, and then to Vieira, who's done such a wonderful job in directing it and doing all the lighting, so many other things. She's already been praised, but I think it's worth saying again. And I am very impressed by what both people have done. It was a great help in making it happen. You have no idea what kind of rush this is for me to see so many old friends and students, and Ives' firstborn son Sherwood and his family and children. So there are 5 Ives here, and it's just such a wonderful feeling to have all that in the same room. It's worth coming just for that. Vieira has said that I could spend 15 minutes talking about Norman Ives, and having written a book that's taken me a long time, it's hard to imagine 15 minutes, but I'd like to try. When Norman left the military and fulfilled his duties there, he went straight to Wesleyan University, where he had a 2-year really good undergraduate, or not undergraduate, but graduate school program in painting and drawing and printmaking and book design and all that. It was run by a brilliant man named Professor Samuel Green. And so at the same time, the Yale Art School was a Beaux-Arts sort of dinosaur, and Joseph Albers had come and turned it all on its head and turned it into a very modern program. But the first class was a class with Norman Ives in it. So when he arrived at Yale, he was greeted by Joseph Albers, Alvin Lustig, and Alvin Eisenman, who had been hired to manage the graphic design program. So he was in the midst of 3 men who were very dedicated to type and printing and love of books and all of that. So in his studies and basic studies for Joseph Albers, Albers was very keen on letter forms as abstract objects apart from any meaning or functional use. And many of his classes were required to draw three-dimensional letters, two-dimensional letters, lines of type, all of that, because Joseph thought it was a very good way to learn about design and forms. So that was another sort of baptism in typefaces there. And I will refer you to the first piece here, which was student work. I think probably was done by, the assignment was probably by Alvin Lustig, but Norman has created a Victorian house. It's a very anecdotal use of letters. It's not so much about forms, but it's about clever anecdotes and things you can do with letters. So that was one beginning of his interest in letters. Soon after that, this other student work, this piece was also done as a student. It is the first piece that he did that shows his interest in destroying and overlaying and fracturing letter forms. This was done on a 32-inch Vandercook. So it went through at least 2, maybe 3 times through the press. And I think it's a very significant starting point for him, because he sees the activity and the visual thing. And if you look at this and then you look at the Rudolph mural in the other room, there's a lot of common ground on those two things. So he soon took up collage, and I think it's number 7 over there is one of the first ones he did. And it was made from pieces of posters that he had access to, that Andrew Ritchie had thrown down to the graphic department, and Joseph and Norman decided to make collages out of that material. So these were printed matter that he adapted and made into a collage. All of the collages, with very rare exceptions, rely on a grid, as does most of this work. And I think some of that comes from Joseph Albers, and some of it comes from just Norman's own interest in organizing things. The grid in a lot of these things is evident, and others it's less evident, and sometimes he opens the space up and makes the grid a real part of the construction. The fracturing of letters was another sort of invention of his. And he decided that if these are abstract forms, he could further abstract them by cutting them and putting them in the essay. So he had access to this same Vandercook press, so he could print alphabets in various colors. And I think the one over here in the middle of this wall is an example of that. That's the one that he made sort of the grist for his collage there. And then he cut it up. And then he overpainted it. You notice that there's a little bit of overpainting. Then he realized that experimentation was interesting, and his curiosity sort of led him to some other media. Screen printing seemed a natural thing because it allowed him to change colors using the same patterns. And I think you'll see 4 over there, or 2 over there, that are of the same structure, but one is in red and one is in black. So there's always that curiosity and experimentation that's going on with him. The collage stayed with him throughout his life, and it took various forms. But at some point, he started working with William Reisman, a architect in Boston, and one of the first pieces of wall art that he did was a mural for a coffee house just outside Boston. And you'll see it in the book. I don't have a copy of it here, and it really doesn't exist, I'm sure. But anyway, that led to other things, large commissions for cinema murals and walls, and he was really not intimidated by space. One of his murals in a Baltimore high school was 70 feet long and about 10 or 12 feet in height. So he was happy to enlarge, and he felt that no space was too large or too small. As he progressed, the letter forms became more obscure in some of the murals and some of the work that he did. And finally, they more or less disappeared. And in the other room, you will see Duod and some of the later pieces where it's very hard to find the smallest vestige of a letter form. But he found it just as exciting as a figure ground with 5 grays or 4 grays or whatever as he had with letter forms. So he really didn't stay tied to letter forms entirely. He was able to branch out. There was a detour or a sidetrack there with Ives. He, from very early on, he and his sister, Jane, had been interested in crossword puzzles. And it's always occurred to me that the coincidence between crossword puzzles and a gridded field with letters on it must have some significance. You can't overlook that. So that was one thing. The other thing was anagrams and wordplay. He was very good at that, and he was very adept at doing it. The image, the large image here on the opening panel is called Centaur, and it is an anagram. And the letters are not fractured except by their overlay and their transparency, and that, in a sense, is another means of fracturing letters. But if I spent about an hour figuring out that these letters could spell horse and oh man, and then I bothered to look at the title of it, and it said Centaur, and I said, "You've wasted an hour." But anyway, if you look at some others that are in the book, and I'm sorry I don't have them on the wall, you'll find other anagrams. There are 2 versions of one that I think is very humorous and very telling. And it's a vertical collage with about 3 values, oranges and grays and blacks. And it's, if you break it down, it spells broke again. 2 words that an artist knows very, very well. And then there's another one called A-bombs, and it's an explosive thing in black and white. It's in the book as well. There is another one, and I'm forgetting, well, there's one that says sober. Just the word sober is an anagram. The Guanajuatos, the circular ones, are also in that same vein of overlaying letters, and I have never been able to make a word out of it. You can spell moon, and you can spell sap, and I'm sure that somebody that's better at anagrams could figure this out. But he started this series in Guanajuato, Mexico, when he took his family there one summer. And he began it, but he continued doing it when he returned to New Haven, and there are at least 2 dozen of these things, and they're really brilliant. They're really wonderful. I'm very pleased to have them. I would like to talk a little about his graphic design. It seemed like a natural transition. He was primarily a fine artist who could take that sensibility and apply it to any other career that he would take up. His teaching was very important to him, and it was very important to his students. He was so personal and quiet and unintimidating, and he never lectured, and he had so few words, but there's so many people that come away saying that his teaching meant more to them than anything else that they learned there. And he loved doing it. He was a part of the faculty at Yale, which in the late 50s, early 60s sort of led graphic design out of the field of commercial art into a much more demanding professional endeavor. And in 1960, he produced a little book with 8 of his symbols, and those are in the back far corner there. There are 8 symbols that he made. Some of them were actually for jobs, and some of them I think were just made for the love of making symbols and using that as another excuse to play with letter forms. They are brilliant, and they still hold up, and they've had a great influence on other designers. And his commentary on it is very rare, because he rarely commented on his own work. But there he really in detail outlined the nuance and all the meanings and the reasons for sharp edges and colors and all of that. So that's worth reading. But the main thing about his graphic design was his understanding of simplicity and the importance of that. He approached it by trying to distill the most important items and the most important symbols, that you reduce it to as few as you could, and then begin doing something with that on a page. Again, it's in the book, but not here. He did a cover for Annie Alber's catalog for the Yale University Art Gallery, and it consists of a piece of wool thread that meanders around on the page, and it's on a gray page, and there's a line of type that goes horizontally through that. So you had only two elements, the line of type and the piece of yarn. And it really does sum up the whole thing in such an elegant and brilliant way. The fact that all of his things were held together by the same visual sensibility. His publishing and the demand of quality and the design of the portfolios shows the same sort of high level of standards that all the rest of his work does. He was publishing for Joseph Albers first, and then other artists saw what he's doing, and he did Ad Reinhardt, he did Robert Indiana, he printed for Willem de Kooning. It's a very long list, and I think in the book you get most of those there. I think that the fact that he was able to, at the same time, hold together 4 careers, plus raising a family of 4 boys with the help of a very dedicated wife, is really a remarkable accomplishment. But one of the last things that I would like to mention is the underlining the fact that he was a presence in graphic design and in fine arts. In 1967, he made an 8-foot painting titled 3-L, and he submitted that to the Whitney annual exhibition, and it was accepted. And it went on the wall along with Joseph Albers and Willem de Kooning and Jasper Johns and Andy Warhol, and all. It was a very big deal for somebody that was better known as a graphic designer. In the same year, the Museum of Modern Art in 1967 mounted a show called 3 Graphic Designers. It was Norman Ives, Massimo Vignelli, and Almir Mavigné. So there he had underlined the respect he had in both fields. I don't know anybody else, I can't think of another artist that succeeded in doing that. I was very lucky to be his student. I was even more fortunate enough to be a good friend. Our families did holidays and so many things together. It's really a very touching thing for me to see all of these people and all of this work come together, and I thank you all for coming. If there's any questions, I might try to answer them. Thank you.
Questions for John? Do you have a favorite piece?
A favorite piece?
Yeah.
I have one that I like very much. It's I think it's number 17 over there. It's a collage, and I have several reasons for liking it. But I was in Rome on a job, and I found on the street a man selling sheets of liturgical music, letterpress printing, and these were sheet music, and they were red and black forms on a beautiful rag, handmade rag paper. And I bought the whole stack, and I brought them to him, and he cut them and made this wonderful collage. There are many, many pieces. But then, to make it more complicated, he overpainted all of the counter spaces in between the letters to enhance the white and to enhance the contrast. And that for me is a very favorite piece. There are others. number 7 is a famous piece, favorite of mine as well.
Can you give a little insight into what and how Norman was thinking or working?
He's asking for you to talk about Centaur.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if this was the first sort of series they did with an overlay like that or not. It's the first one that I'm aware of. It's certainly the only one that he bothered to make a silkscreen of, so he was obviously satisfied with the way it worked. And he made an edition of, I think maybe 50 or 75 of it, and they hold up very well.
This scale?
That scale is, it holds up at almost any scale. I mean, it holds up as a postage stamp, it holds up as, 12-inch square. It holds up, it's one of those things that he used the word gestalt. It meant that everything is so completely placed in the proper order that you cannot change anything without destroying the whole thing. And I would consider that an example of a gestalt by Norman.
Were you able to see the student work outside, and what did you think about that?
I was very impressed with the student thing outside. I thought it was well done. Did you? Did you give him a high mark?
It was Jen's, and Stacy said lots of it, but yeah, I gave them a high mark.
Oh, you gave him a high mark. Oh, great. Okay.
Every time I hear you talk, I hear something new. So I don't know if I've become a better listener. But are you seeing something new as you rearrange or dig deeper? Or?
Well, I always find something new. I had not been aware, one thing that I found that was new that surprised me was this series here, the 4 on this wall, are particularly a good example of that. I knew the silkscreen print, and I did not know that he had produced 3 other iterations of that. The one that little collage that has a Bible that says the word Bible in it, that has in the background some black German, it's called German blackface type. It was used in England, it was used in Germany. And I never thought anything about that, but one morning I would put the thing on the wall at RIT, and along comes the curator of the library there, was a scholar, and I've just lost his name, but I said to him, could you tell me what that is? He said he took a photograph with his cell phone. He said, I'll come tomorrow and I'll tell you. So he came back the next morning and he said, that is the 1547 printing of a Bible. And I thought that was remarkable. Within less than 10 minutes, David Godine came by, and he's a scholar. And I said, David, what do you think that is? He said, I think that's the 2nd edition of this Bible. And I don't know, first of all, I don't know where he got access. Well, he had pickers, he had people bringing stuff to him. There were just a lot of them. But that was one thing that just blew me away, that he'd cut up this Bible, this very rare Bible. It didn't seem to matter. It's just like constructions and reconstructions, right? Destructions to make a construction.
Thank you.
Yes.
There are a number of collage, unique pieces, which probably hide in private collections. Do you have any sense of how large that?
Of the collage collection?
That are still hidden or in private collections that we'll never see or may never be published?
Well, that's a sore question, because there's so many private collections that I would like to see and will never see again. It's because they're locked away, and sometimes they get passed on to children who see no value in them, and it's very sad. But it is a question. I have no idea how many collages. Sherwood, would you dare guess?
I cannot.
Lots. Because every night after dinner, he would go to the corner there in the coal room, and he would be having a sip and a cigarette and continue to do collages. It was nonstop.
Is it fair to say that if you want to see more, his work does come up with a dealer in Newport,
Yes.
Francis Frost?
Oh, there are other dealers too, but Francis Frost is probably the most high profile. Yeah, stuff does come up. Screen prints, especially, and a few paintings have come up.
I would love to hear more about how his process started.
About what?
How his process would start with a project and how he would get inspired. I know you talked about like anagrams and crosswords. Did he ever have creative blocks?
That's a good question because I meant to talk about this, but a lot of these paintings he did dozens and dozens of gouache sketches on tracing paper. Now, I don't know if you know gouache and tracing paper and how they react, but if you put a wet brush with gouache on a tracing paper, it starts crinkling. But he did stacks and stacks of these wonderful color studies and wonderful studies for paintings and for screen prints before he ever did them. So the process, he would start sometimes with a small black and white sketch, and then it would go from there. They didn't come out of just suddenly arrive fully formed. They did have an origin and a sequence of process. But yeah, they don't just spring out. They're not born fully shaped.
How long did it take to put this book together?
Oh, the book.
Yeah.
You know, I work on a lot of books all at the same time, and it's an interesting process because I made an early maquette. I made several early maquettes for this book 20 years ago, and I would keep coming back to it, and I would change the size, I'd change the number of pages, I'd change the organization, and I finally decided I have to nail it down and get something done. So about, I don't know how many, 3 or 4 years ago, I finally got it together, and with the help of the Ives Foundation, I got it printed. But it's a last minute. We also found a publisher who stepped in and made a big difference in the whole thing. There are books for sale on the website, and I encourage you to see the website. It's www.normanives.org. So you can buy things there. You can see a history of all the other exhibitions. You can see other material. You can see other things. It's a very rich website. And I want to thank Corinne Forty for having to do with developing that website. She has been so important in promoting the book in the exhibition, and that she's been my mainstay, really. I'm blessed.
This is the amazing book. There's our student Ashley who is mending them, so John can sign it for you. And I wanted to thank Corinne. Corinne, thank you again for being the person behind the scenes, making sure we get the promotion in all the media, including the Boston Globe review on Sunday. So thank you so much. I wanted to make sure we get to that. And thank you again, Jen and John, for this wonderful evening. And can I just ask everybody who is from Ives family to put their hands up? Wonderful. Thank you so much for Ives relatives that were here. We really appreciate having this opportunity.